Good morning. Good to see you again. Another good day for a walk in the woods. A little foggy this morning as I look over and out in the hills. Think about that psalm, out in the hills, from whence cometh my help? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Funny things that just stick in your mind. Oh, well, what can come of all this? I think, let me sit down here for a second. Let's talk about what good can come of all this, because I think there's always the opportunity for some good to come. Let me suggest this morning. The good that could come from this would be a time for reflection, that we can reflect on our lives, because we have so little opportunity to do that outside of a crisis, which usually forces us to think about our life at the time, or being a police officer and being involved in like a high-speed chase and not getting killed and having somebody shoot at you and they were a bad shot. And on your way home from work that night, you think about, what is this life that I'm living? I did a lot of work in men's ministry because I think men need a lot of help. I think we men have been raised with a model from our fathers, especially those of you in my age group, that have been a bad model, that work was all important, supporting the family, get married to a woman, she takes care of the kids, she stays at home, and we grub for more and more of the good life. And there was a book that came out in I think it was the 80s, early 90s, called Halftime. And what the book was about was to try to, make the analogy to men that, when you're playing sport, playing football, for example, and you're behind the scoreboard and you played a bad first part of the game, there's a halftime. The whistle blows and you run into the locker room and the coach says, "Okay, what's going on, guys? How can we change the situation out there? How do we do that?" And the coaches would have some examples for us. But the problem is that most of us men, we don't have that coach in our life. But I think the analogy is a good one. And for me, it happened as I was approaching 40 and into my early 40s. I didn't like what was going on in my life. I didn't like myself. I didn't like what I was doing. So I had to make some very painful changes. And that was a halftime in my life, as I'm now in my 80s. So that was my 40s. That was half a lifetime ago. And the changes I made, I think, were for the better. It was hard on my children, but at the time I made those changes and went forward. And I was lucky, and I think that if you were to ask me, well, how's the game going, David? I'd say, well, first half was a little rugged, but pulled back in the third and fourth quarters, and things are going a lot better, and I thank God for that. So maybe that's what we're called to do out here during this time of pandemic. To think about, to reflect on our lives. We should have our time. A lot of us are isolated. Others have reduced work hours. We know we are in the midst of a fearsome time. So why not make a plan? Take a look at your life. How are you doing? Do you have some really close friends around you who really love you? Can you go up to them and say, "Hey buddy, how am I doing? I'd really like to know how you see my life." Because I think those are important questions in terms of accountability. Do you have somebody in your life, especially to the guys, do you have another male out there in your life who you are accountable to, who say, "Hey, I'm going to help you live a better life, and you help me. And when I'm falling down, I want to know about that. Well, I've got a guy like that in my life, and I'm very grateful to him. So let's think about that. The life you're living. Let's do a halftime check-in. Let's go into the locker room and talk about what you can do for the next half of your life. It might be very important to you and to your loved ones. In the meantime, listen to the birds, take a walk, isolate, mask, be a good person. God bless.